Well, this is going to be a pictorial of Horseshoe Bar on the Middle Fork of the American River, or what's known as American Bar. And also there's Gray Eagle Bar down there, and we had quite the dredging trip down there, and quite the time. And it started off in the first part of the year. I ended up buying myself a brand new Est-Wing gold pan. You know, the nice big metal ones that you can't break, because I got tired of breaking them after using the plastic ones for so long. I think I had one of those Keen plastic ones, and I had taken it and I'd slipped on a rock, and I had it in my hand, so I tossed it as gently as possible, kind of like a flying saucer, over to have it land nice and safe. And it landed on the one rock, it broke it. So I was finally fed up with breaking plastic gold pans. I went back to the steel gold pans, and here it is coming right up here. That's a old Minor Reed picture right here in the house. As a matter of fact, I'm sitting right here, right below that little engine right today, just like I always do when I'm making my videos. And you know, that's from 2003, and yeah, I was pretty happy with that pan, because I got into I don't know, somebody was trying to tell me you couldn't buy them anymore, that it was an antique pan and this and that, and you know, telling me it's worth a lot of money, and I'm like, yeah, it was worth about 15 bucks or whatever it was back in the day. And that was the old one I went ahead and stopped using. It just got so rusty, it kept making my hands not only red, but it would, you know, cause blisters if I was out using that pan all the time. So I finally broke down and bought myself a brand new metal gold pan, and I still use that pan today. Doesn't look quite as clean and nice, but you know what? It backpacks with me. And so now let's go to American Bar. And this is looking at it from Mosquito Ridge Road out of Forest Hill, looking down on it from the very beginning. And what had happened here was that you can see that hole there, and we had gone down there to go dredging, and we had to, you know, float all of our stuff downriver about a mile or so to the spot we wanted to go dredging at. So we took the canoe down there, and we loaded up all of our gear. And then we went ahead and we canoed and we paddled up in, you know, to the hole. And that hole that you see right there, that was put in by the miners back in the 1800s to divert the water off that big bar. And if you look around above, there's a great big horseshoe bend. There's going to be another picture coming up here. It shows the entire bend. But so what we had done is we packed all of our gear up in my canoe, and then we had my buddy Jim. We had his little 4-inch Proline dredge, and we took it down the rapids, and the rapids were so fast and so tall and so deep that it looked like fingers on top when it started going down through this little chute that we're going to see here in a few minutes. It was really awesome. And what was going on was, I was there with Arkansas Steve and his buddy Chris, and then we had Misha, and then we had Jim and myself and Abraham. And Chris kept getting out with a canoe full of stuff a little bit too close to the fast water where he's going to get drugged downstream. And we kept saying, hey, don't be getting that close to the edge. If you get sucked downstream, there's not going to be anybody to come get you. And it's not like it was really all that dangerous. But, you know, for a guy that didn't know how to swim all that good, it was going to scare the heck out of him. If you look at this picture, you can see the entire horseshoe bend, and that's what they had done. They went ahead and they cut that hole through the bedrock to drain that entire horseshoe so they could get the gold out of it. And I don't know. I can't remember how many millions of dollars of gold came out of there. It's just flat out incredible. Another good shot of the entire horseshoe bend. So anyway, we're all there, and the canoe's starting to head out on its own to go downstream. And old Chris, he didn't know how to swim very well, and everybody else was avoiding that. I mean, I was just going to go ahead and swim down it with the canoe because I had my wetsuit on, and I was all totally prepared to go through the rapids and guide the canoe and everything else down there with me. But the next thing you know, the canoe starts going out, and Chris is out there trying to bring it in a little bit because the head started coming around. I'm like, just let it go. But he couldn't do it, you know, and the next thing you know, he slipped, and down he went into that chute. And the next thing you know, you hear this, ah, ah, I'm too young to die. God help me. No, no, I don't want to die. As he gets sucked down this chute. and, he, and of course, the canoe was right in front of him. And everybody else, we're all sitting there on the shore getting our stuff together. And we're just laughing at him, and he's just hating life because he knows that he's going to drown now and he's going to get sucked down that chute and he's going to die, man. And this is just all there is to it. And we kept telling him, don't get that close because he wasn't that good of a swimmer. And so he's just screaming and crying, just, ah, ah, ah. Just scared shitless is all you can say. He was scared shitless. And we're all laughing. And Arkansas Steve, he looks at me and he goes, what do we do? And I just start laughing. I'm like, just let him go. We'll pick him up downstream. He should have listened. And anyway, it was a great trip. And it's still coming up here. I'm just showing all these different pictures of the holes. And the chute, I don't have too good of a shot of the actual chute in here. I just have a picture of the rapids from way up here above. And this is, like I said, right off Mosquito Ridge Road going down in here. And there's that chute right there. You can see it right there at the end of that hole where it comes down. And he got sucked down that chute, man. And I'm telling you, I'd never seen anybody hating life more than Chris was right there at that moment. It was really something to see. And if you look to the right of that, you see Gray Eagle Bar. And that's really a famous bar, too, because when the water shoots out through that hole and brings all the material with it, it creates this bar, and that bar is just full of gold, all kinds of gold. This is actually a privately owned, patented mine that used to be available to rent, and we went ahead and we rented we didn't rent a spot or nothing like that for a trailer, but we just went ahead and paid the dues for the year. I don't even remember how much money it was, but sometimes it's pretty good money, and sometimes it's a little bit not quite as good of a deal. Like nowadays, I think they're charging a lot more money to go down there. But there's another shot of that chute. It's just the most beautiful place. I wish I would have taken... Actually, I had more pictures, but I lost a lot of them. There was a lot of old houses. There was an old town down there on that bar. And we had all kinds of fun down there, and it was just a great trip. So anyway, we went ahead and we got all of our stuff together, and I just floated right down the chute myself without holding on to anything, just looking at the bottom as I got drugged downstream, probably 20 feet above the bottom. It was just flying down there, and I loved it. There was nothing more fun than being just dragged downstream. You don't have to do anything except just pretend like you're Superman and just move your hands left and right or up and down and whatever, just to control you to keep you straight in the rapids. It was really a beautiful spot. And what I did for the couple years that I was going down there, so I took my canoe down there. I left it down there, and we would just used it to go back up and downstream to the dredge where we had it. And it was really... something else. Going downstream was a blast, and coming back up, we actually had to walk it back across part of the Gray Eagle Bar to get back into that little pool there that you can see. But all in all, man, I mean, it was just 2003 was one of the most awesome summers that we ever had, and we had a great time down there. And this is just still another shot of the entire bar. You can look up there and just look around and follow. That looks like a road or the actual dry riverbed, and that's actually, Horseshoe Bar. Real famous spot on the Middle Fork of the American River. Another shot with the beginning of the chute, and they actually had a golf course down there, just a little mini golf course, but you know what? It was still a golf course, and people had a lot of fun in that place. And old Jim, him and his other buddy Matt, they went down there with his scuba tanks, and they went up through this tunnel, and it was really something to see. This must be above, just kind of looking over the entire area above Horseshoe. Yeah, the American River Canyon sure is a beautiful spot. And now we're coming up to close-ups down there. And this is the tunnel, and it was blasted through the mountain to divert the river off of Horseshoe Bar. I think it was in the 1800s. I don't remember the year. I remember, I used to know it, but I don't anymore. Just a beautiful spot. And we'd take the canoe and we'd paddle all the way up to those falls and just have a great time. It was just the most wonderful and most beautiful place. And here's Jim and Misha. I took the picture in the canoe as we're going up through the tunnel. And Misha, he was just, just one huge Russian, and he just would just pick up our 9 horsepower motors, in one hand, and was like, where do you want them? The guy was an animal, and he helped us carry our stuff down and put it together, and it was just he was a big help. And then Jim, he was, he's just so amazed at the tunnel. And here I went through there with a family. There was Abraham and then Carol, and we had gone all the way through the tunnel, and we're up there by the falls. Yeah, I got a bunch of great shots of the family. Back in the day, back when the kid was still at home, and so was the wife back in those days, long before she left. Ah, shoot. Yeah, it's just a beautiful spot, man. There's nothing that can say it better than this picture right here of just what we were surrounded by. And the rafters and kayakers would come down those falls. To the left-hand side, there was a chute. And they'd come down through that chute when they were doing it. And you can just see it right there, just a little bit of it, as it's showing. We're working our way up through the tunnel right now. And, we'd go all the way up through there to the rapids, then go ahead and just let the canoe drift back down and come back out. And here we are coming back down. That is just the most incredible place. How can you say anything other than just incredible? They film movies down here. I think Tarzan was filmed down here. That modern Tarzan they did here. Well, it was probably 15 years ago now. George of the Jungle. Oh, yeah, that's right. No, it was George of the Jungle they did down here. And you can see that greenstone on the roof, and they blasted this entire tunnel out with dynamite back in the day. And there's a nice little vein right there running through that greenstone. And here's a shot looking the other way, looking down towards Gray Eagle Bar, and you look at that sidewall over there, straight out, and you can see how it's washed totally clean. When the high water comes through there, it just flat out destroys that sidewall and washes the gold out and everything. Actually, it deposits that gold down there, and creates that bar. And I want to go dredging right there, and I had a friend of mine, Mike. He's like, where do you think I ought to go dredging? He was pretty much brand new, though, back in those days in 2003. Now he's an old timer just like we are. And I'm like, I'd put my dredge right here at the head of this bar and go straight down. And he couldn't quite understand what I was trying to say. He didn't realize the gold was getting blasted right to that bar, and the big stuff was going to be right there. And I kept shaking my head going, how come you don't bring your dredge up here? And so finally, another person that was down there saw he wasn't doing it, and he brought his dredge up there and went straight down right where I said to, and pulled all kinds of nuggets out of there, just all kinds of nuggets. I think he got like 1.5 ounce nuggets, 1 ounce nuggets, all kinds of nuggets out of there. It was just crazy. And there's that chute that the kayakers and rafters would come down right straight ahead there to the left. They'd come right through that chute, man. And it was neat because we were just down there with the kayakers and rafters having a great time. But anyway, yeah, this guy got all kinds of gold out of there, and Mike kept shaking his head after that guy went up there and says, yeah, he's getting all my gold, man. And I'm like, what do you mean he's getting all your gold? You had your chance. I told you to go there. And he goes, well, yeah, but I didn't realize what you meant. And I didn't think that bedrock was just quite that shallow. It was only like 15 feet down or something, or less than that. So he was all torqued that he didn't listen, but he was brand new back then. And you know what? And we all have to learn the hard way. I mean, sometimes this is how it is. And here we are. You can see Carol. She's just kicking back there. We're just letting the current take us back downstream, and it just would push us over to Gray Eagle Bar as long as we stayed away from the chute. And this here is a picture taken in 1917. If you look above the hole, there's actually a guy up there above that. And this is in high water during the winter of 1917. It says 221 or 2217 or 22117. I can't see it because it's so small here when I'm producing it, but it's just a neat picture. And we've seen that hole completely and totally full of water and blasting Gray Eagle Bar, just blasting it, and enough water that year in 2003, 2004, to where it actually ran around Horseshoe Bar again because there wasn't enough drainage left in that hole. And this is an old strongbox they had down there. You know, I don't know if it was a Wells Fargo strongbox or not. I can't remember, but they used to go ahead and store the gold down here, and they've had all kinds of people that come down here and mine this bar. And like I said, they used to actually have a town down here. There's Abraham posing. And so we came down here, and we see this old friend of ours, you know, that I hadn't seen in many years. In fact, my buddy Bill here, he was the guy that introduced me to dredging. He was the first person that I ever went with. We went camping down there at his claim, and he showed me how to dredge. And actually, you know, that was my very first time even being introduced. And here he is at the bottom of the tunnel that he dug straight down to bedrock to get the gold off the bedrock, and that's what he was doing. He spent a lot of the summer just shoring that up and putting that steel down through there because that's what he does for a living, and he went down to bedrock and he got the gold out of that hole and just moved on from there. Of course, Carol's down there. She had no problem going up and down that little ladder. She just really enjoyed doing that stuff back in the day. You know, she really did. You can see the standing water in the bottom there. And anyway, here's another shot coming up. This is the outside of it. And that's all it is just a hole going straight down. Then he would take that plywood there and cover it up and lock it up every night. And he just lived up the street a little bit from there, so it was really quite the setup. Quite the setup. And he had a winch to haul the boulders out of there and everything. Then this coming up, this is the picture of the sluice that he had set up down there. The long tom that he was getting all the gold into. And he's showing us how how to work it and everything. And this is 2003, and it was way back in the 80s. He's a famous dredger, you know. And he was dredging full time back in the 80s and 70s and just making all kinds of money. And here he was down there that year at Horseshoe with us, and we all just had a blast. That was a great day seeing him down there. And that's his long tom setup. Look how long that is. I don't know if he got any gold or not down there. What do you guys think? Well, remember that guy that got washed down the chute, screaming for his life? Well, that's him right there. That's Chris. And he was out finding gold. And now we're getting ready to move into the pictures of us dredging down here. And yeah, it was just a neat time. That was the first time Chris had ever been to California and gold mining. Me and Steve, we'd been mining together as partners for a couple years, and we still make plans today to go out and have fun. And there's one of my best friends there, Arkansas Steve. And you can see him there with his hookah, and we're just having all kinds of fun and pulling all kinds of gold out of that crack right there in the bedrock. And I mean, it was amazing the amount of gold we were getting out of there. And here he is down there working it. We had his keen down there and just had a good time, you know. And you can see all those cobbles above him on that rock. All those cobbles that are there, we put there. And yeah, that keen dredge worked pretty good. Not too bad the way we had it set up and everything. And there's Arkansas Steve in the middle. I don't remember the guy on the left. He actually came down there to buy a dredge, an old 5-inch triple that I had. And he'd never found gold before, so we took him down here. This isn't on the American. This is one of our other places. And I'm like, well, just head on up here and look around, see if you can find some gold. And I'll be darned if he didn't find his first nugget. And there's Chris on the right, of course, again. And here we are underwater, and this is Jim and Steve down there dredging. This is in the spot that we had down on the American again. It was actually way down below Gray Eagle Bar, probably a couple bends downstream. Actually, there was a little side chute where the water kind of split in half, and the majority of it was going out in the main river, but we had a real small section that we put down. And what we had done is, because there was so much material, we decided to go ahead and move as much material we could only off the top 6 inches of the riverbed, because that way we were just getting all the flood gold. And we had a phenomenal day just getting flood gold alone, because there was no way you could hit bedrock. Bedrock's probably 30 or 40 feet down. And we just had that little 4-inch dredge. And so that's what we did. We pulled all kinds of gold out of there, all fines, you know, and of course the Middle Fork of the American has nuggets, you know, what most people consider, you know, good sized nuggets, even in just the flow itself and the fines. That's Arkansas Steve down there underwater. And I think you can see Jim up there behind him. And there's the hole we were working. Look at the size of those cobbles in there. So we were getting good gold, but we were just doing the top 6 inches, maybe a little bit deeper, but not much. Just trying to get the good stuff. And that's all we did. We just picked that area at the perfect spot, and we filled our pans with gold, man. And next thing you know, Steve looks up. It's like, hey, is that my sucker bottle? And there it was, floating downstream. And there's Jimmy underwater. This is a good shot of Jim. You know, he's been a partner of mine for a good number of years now, since 2002, 2001, somewhere in there. You know, so we're going back over 10 years these days. Yeah, and he likes those underwater shots. We sure have some good ones. And I got a lot more of them coming up. I'll be putting a lot more of these pictorials together, because I have a lot of great, just unbelievably awesome underwater shots. This one here is just a blow up, I think. That's why it looks kind of grainy to me. That's how it is, though. Yeah, we got tons of good underwater shots. And these are all taken with just a little cheap Kmart camera or whatever. Just the cheap underwater cameras that you buy, the disposables. And it's amazing how great the quality is on those little disposable cameras. You can't beat it. Yeah, I'm going to have an underwater camcorder next. You know, we got a couple of them laying around here we can use. We have one of those GoPros, and we also have another one. And as far as it goes with the GoPro, for those of you that are interested in learning about those, you can't see the screen on that, and you can't really make any changes to what's going on until you get it home and get on your computer. So there are better ones out there, and the GoPro's kind of like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, you got the thing that'll mount to your head and so on, or mount it on a kayak, but you can mount a lot of cameras on a kayak or go underwater with them that you actually have a screen that you can see with. And I think seeing the screen and seeing what you're shooting makes a big difference personally, especially when you're underwater. And there's Steve and Jim again, doing some more dredging. Beautiful. Look at the clarity of that water. Just, it was just so smooth. Even though it looks like there's hardly any current, it was really hard just trying to hold yourself in one spot when we had extra weight on, just to try and keep it in there. Yeah, 2003, man. 9 years ago. Wow. I do love dredging. It is like my favorite pastime. I'll be doing some dredging this year, but we're not going to be getting any underwater footage because it's going to be real muddy. Because nowadays here in California, we're not legally dredging. What we're doing is booming, and it's running up on the side bank when you're not in the area of a river, and that's what we got. We got a little area where we got a little spring runoff that doesn't feed into a stream. It just goes underground, and that's what we'll be doing here this summer, along with the trommel as well. Yeah, a lot of good underwater shots here. It's funny, I went down there and we got tons of underwater shots, but it was so hard moving the material. I mean, all of our gear downstream, having to run the rapids, and then, you go down 2 miles and pack your stuff with you every day, and, pack the canoe with the food and everything that was, you couldn't get wet, that we didn't get a whole lot of shots taken of actually getting to the spot. And we just had this underwater camera because we were so remote. This is way, way out in the middle of nowhere, that we just took that underwater camera with us and put it on our wrist and just went on downstream, because that's how we'd get down there. We'd just go ahead and swim down through the chute every day and just let the river take us down almost all the way to the dredge. There was trails, and you could walk the trail, but it's like just as easy to get in the water and let the current take you down. It was fun. A lot of work to do that, but it's probably easier to take the canoe across and walk down, but it's still more fun going down that chute. And we did have a fun time going down that chute. That was just one of my favorite natural carnival rides or water slides. It's actually is what it is. It's a natural water slide, but the water's like 20 feet deep. Yeah, 4-inch Proline. Sure is one of my favorite dredges of all time. And we had Jim's down there, and I still have mine. Hasn't been used a whole lot in the last couple of years, but, so maybe someday we'll be able to get up to Oregon or Alaska or Canada and put that dredge to work again. That looks like Steve and Jimmy again. Actually got a picture from outside. Yeah, look how clear that water is. It's just such a beautiful spot, man. Yeah. They were just working away. They were working a little hole. They didn't want to stay in the top 6 inches. We were doing good, but they went down about, maybe a foot. A little bit more than that right there in that one spot, just to see how deep we could go and find gold down there. We found out we were getting a lot better gold up on top, so we ended up spending the rest of the day just doing that. But we put a little bit of a dent in that spot just to check it out and see what we were doing. But you can see just from looking at the bottom, we weren't doing a whole lot as far as going deep. But like always, we were having fun and staying cool. And that's one thing about the Middle Fork of the American. You got no choice but to stay cool. It's not one of the warmest rivers coming out of Oxbow Reservoir. And here's a picture of the mighty dredge tender, tending that 4-inch Proline dredge of Jim's. Yeah, he got those safety orange floats. Man, those things are about the most god-awfulest looking things there were. But that dredge was so popular at that time that was the last dredge that was available for sale. And it's like if he didn't get the orange floats, he wasn't going to get a dredge till the following year. So we went ahead and got the orange floats. And then he went ahead and built his home later on. And yeah, it's a Proline. You just can't help but love a Proline dredge. Well, and here we were at the end of the day, and we were finished dredging. And so the guys walked downstream while we were getting the dredge put away and this and that. Next thing they come running back upstream and go, "Hey, Reed, come downstream quick. There's a dredge. It's sinking." And lo and behold, here it is. Remember Mike I was talking about? Well, this was his dredge. He had that 5-inch triple, and he swore up and down somebody went down and kicked a hole or stuck a hole in the bottom of the pontoon with a rock or a sledgehammer or something anyway. And that dredge just kind of was right underneath the motor. So the motor went down, and then the force of the current and the water and the hose that was still on there just took it to the bottom on that one side. And it kind of stayed there. We got down there, and it was just about dark. So Steve took some pictures, and that's all we had about how he had time to do. We didn't have time to get it back out of there. We tried moving it, but that current was so swift right there because the middle fork of the American, rises and lowers at will pretty much. And right then, it wasn't at its lowest point. It was its highest point. You can see the hose hanging down there in the water. And what had happened was when the pontoon was popped, it sank, and that hose just drug it to the bottom on that side. And there was nothing you could do except, leave it there for us because it was almost dark. So we got back up out of there and got a hold of him. And yeah, he went down there and got it and got his motor all fixed back up. And he still uses that dredge today as far as I know. It's been a good dredge. He ended up putting, I don't know if he put all new pontoons on it or not, but you can see the hose there. And that's what happened when you leave the hose on there in swift current. It'll drag a dredge down, and that may have been what happened. It might have just been the hose itself, with the dredge turned a little bit, could have drug it down enough to where it actually filled that pontoon over the few days he wasn't there. But then when it hit bottom, got that hole in the pontoon. But yeah, he swears up and down for sure that somebody went down there and sunk his dredge. So yeah, well, Mike, he's good people. Couldn't ask for another nicer fella to be around. And we're coming up to the end here. I just thought I'd throw these pictures in there because I got them. And this was the end of our American Bar trip. Yeah, it was a shame to see that sitting down there like that. And the worst part about it was so close to dark that we didn't have hardly time to get out. By the time we got back to our truck, it was after dark as it was. And we just didn't have the time for all of us to go down there and get in that fast current and get it out of there. I tried dragging it up and moving it around, but that water grabbed a hold of me, and it was moving me left and right, so I didn't want any of the other guys getting in there that didn't know how to swim as good as I do. But like I said, you get down there at the right time of day when the current's down and nice and low, and you can just pick that thing up and just carry it right up on shore without any problem after taking the hoses off and stuff. Just amazing. And that's it. We didn't take a whole lot of gold pictures back then. I've got a lot of gold pictures in 2004. But we were taking the gold and splitting it up, and this is just another nice picture of gold. And hey, you know what? That's all I got to say. You guys have a good one. Hope you enjoyed this.